Fine.
Good.
Have you ever wanted to be a homemade myrmecologist? Hello, I'm Ethan, and today I'm going to tell you how to keep ants. So first, you're going to need a queen to start your colony. You can find queen ants during their nuptial flight, in which they find male drones of their same species and mate. This is the only time their new queens will come out of their colonies. So here's a chart showing nuptial flight times in North America for some of the more common species. As you can see, through May through September is the best time to go out looking for new queens. So whenever you're looking for queens, usually you can just find them, just on the ground. Just go around looking for them. So you'll have to know how to figure out which ant's a queen. So if you're looking on the ground for queens, then obviously you're going to find either drones or just normal ant workers. So I put down some of the more common ways to tell if something's a queen or a drone or a normal ant. For queens, as you can see, they have a large thorax right there. That's where their wings muscles are. Once they're done mating, usually they'll shed their wings, but they still have this where their wing muscles were. They have a large gaster over their abdomen right there, much larger than other ants like this drone down there. And then they also have their wing scars. So if you look right here, see how they have like an indent? That's where her wings were before they fell off. So here's a drone. I put them here instead of a normal ant because they also have wings, so you can't just tell if they have wings or not. As you can see, a drone has a small head, much smaller than the rest of its body, and it also has a more wasp-like body than normal ants. Okay, so, and here are some good weather conditions and where to look for queens, what times. So it's best to look for ants in the evening because that's usually when they come out, like near the end of the day, kind of in the midday, in between there. You want to find warm weather because in between 75 Fahrenheit, 85 Fahrenheit, because then it's not too cold, not too hot, they won't die. You want to look around water and around after rain because they like humidity, that's when they'll come out. Alright, so now that you know how to find your queen ant, you're going to want to know where to keep her and where to catch her. So this is what we call a test tube setup. It's where you're going to keep your queen ant once you find it. So you're looking along the pavement and you find a queen ant, but how are you supposed to keep her? You can't just hold her in your hands and bring her into your house. So we make what we call a test tube setup. We need a test tube, cotton balls, and water. It's like in the picture there. So you get a test tube, you fill it up halfway around with water. And like that cotton ball right there, you just shove the cotton ball down until it soaks up some of the water. But you don't want to push it down too far where water gets in, because ants can actually drown in the smallest pieces of water. Like if you just have a droplet, they might just drown. And then so while you're looking on the ground, you look down, you find your queen ant, you put the tube over her, and then you just tilt it or whatever, and she'll crawl into it, and then you just put the last piece of cotton there, and then voila, you've caught your queen ant. So most ant keepers keep their fledgling queens in one of these. Okay. So now you have a place to store your queen. How do you keep her comfortable? So you need darkness. So you're going to want to put her in a place, either a place that's dark, or you can put, for example, construction paper over the tube, which will keep it dark. You want to leave her undisturbed. Only check on her every week or so, week or two, because otherwise she'll actually get really stressed. And if she does actually lay eggs, then she'll eat them, and she might even just die if she gets too stressed. So that's why you want to leave her undisturbed for a very long time before you check on her. You need water, the humidity, which is right here. I put that there just in case you don't want to use a test tube setup. If you catch her in just a jar, let's say you have a water bottle or just a container that you catch her in there, you want to put a wet cotton ball just for humidity. And you also want a warm temperature. So some good places to keep a queen ant, either a closet shelf, an unused cabinet, a garage if it's warm, not cold, an attic if it's not too warm. You want an unair-conditioned room, so a cabinet or a closet for the warmth, and an unused cabinet too if you're picking a cabinet, because otherwise you'll check on her too much and she'll get rather stressed. Okay, so yeah. So now we're going to learn about the founding stage. So now that you have your queen ant, you caught her, you put her wherever you want her to. So now we're going to go through the founding stage where she lays her eggs and you're getting ready to put her to where she's going to live. This is where she sets up. So now, yeah, so you've caught a queen ant. So we're going to talk about some test tube maintenance. Sometimes on the cotton ball, mold will start to grow. You'll see green mold on it. And this can be harmful to your ants. But luckily enough, mold isn't actually that hard to fix. You can just get another test tube that you set up, just like the one before. connect to them using a tube or putting them in a bigger container. And then you flash like a light, or you heat up the tube that she's in, and then make the other tube dark and warm, and she'll just move whenever she's ready. She'll learn that it's a better place for her to live. So now there's two different types of queen ants. There's claustral queen ants and semi-claustral queen ants. Claustral queen ants, most ants are claustral. They don't need food until they're first workers, because the wing muscles, like I talked about, once they lose their wings, they actually use that for their own energy. So that's why they can live until they have their first workers without food. Semi-claustrals, that's just a small amount of ant species. They need a small amount of food before their first workers. So usually you can tell if an ant is claustral or semi-claustral by going online and asking, like there's some certain websites where you can ask people what your ant is by taking pictures. If you live near a myrmecologist, which is an ant scientist, you can ask them if they are accessible to you. But if you can't find out, you don't have internet, you don't live next to a museum, then if your ant is claustral, semi-claustral, then you can just leave your ant with a small piece of food. I'll go more into how you feed them later, but just a small piece of food. And if she eats it, then she's semi-claustral. If she leaves it alone, then she's most likely claustral. So now let's talk about the ant life cycle. So queen ants. So queen ants will lay eggs first, and then it progresses into larvae and pupa. So some queen ants will actually make silk cocoons around their pupa, but not all ants do this. And then eventually it hatches into ants. We'll talk about your first workers later. So, but if your ant doesn't lay eggs, let's say that she doesn't lay eggs for 2 weeks, sadly she's probably unfertile, and you'll have to let her go. If she does lay eggs, but she's like on the other side of the tube, not tending to them, or if they hatch into male drones, which are the wasp-like ants, then it means that she's also infertile. And usually it's best to just kill the queen in these situations, because if you let her out into the wild, then she'd just die. She'd be eaten, or she'd just starve to death. Now, this is taking care of your nantics. Nantics are as you can see here, the first workers that hatch from your eggs. They are much smaller than most workers. This is how I'm talking about how you feed ants now. So ants' diets consist of protein and sugar. So now normally ants will get their protein from crushed up bugs or small pieces of bugs. So for example, the leg of a cricket or so, whenever there's a little bit of ants. And honey or sugar water usually satisfies their needs for sugar. And then so there's an antic, very small. And to feed your ants, sometimes you can just open the cotton, put food in there, and then close it again. But sometimes you're not quick enough and they'll get out. So some people just put them in a big container, and then they put the food outside the tube, and then the ants will just come and eat whenever they need to. So now here is the formicarium stage. This is the final stage for your ants, except for, of course, death. Formicarium stage. A formicarium like this is a place where you keep your ants, basically. It has many chambers, rooms for you to keep all your ants in. They usually move in there. It needs a way for humidity. So in this particular model, you put water in here, and then humidity comes from here. So if you have just a normal like sand ant farm, you'll have to find a way to humidify them differently. And then there's also something else you'll need is here's just an example of a formicarium that somebody else made. And it has the queen there, all her larvae, ants all around. And then there's also an outworld, which you'll have to connect to your formicarium using tubing or some such. Formicariums are where they put their trash outside, you feed them. As you can see, there's a hole up there. You can drop food in there, and it's basically just a natural environment for them to eat and get rid of their trash. Also, something else you might notice is that there is a hole up there. Some ants are actually really good climbers, and there are certain ways to keep them from climbing out. One of the most used mixtures that are slippery to ants is a mix of rubbing alcohol and baby powder. If you just dab it around the top, usually they won't be able to get through. Though, of course, sometimes larger colonies find ways to get through. And that's about it. So, some miscellaneous information. Ants can actually live a long time in water for up to a week because they can breathe. So, if your tube floods, then it's fine. They're probably alive. And also, you can find out how much you should feed a colony by just giving them food until they won't eat anymore. For small tubes, you usually just want to give them like a tiny drop of sugar water or a piece of a bug every week or so. For your colonies, you just got to test to see how much food they'll eat. And yeah, so that's it. There's my citations. Any questions? Yes, Joe.
Okay, so this at the beginning you said that the ants will drown in only a little bit of water, but just now you said that if it floods, they'll be okay.
So, well, that's the thing about ants, is that if they're swimming, so if you flood your tube, then usually it means that the cotton got loose and then there's just a layer of water, which means that ants, they actually have orifices which they can close, and that's where they breathe. So they close the ones at the bottom, open the ones on the top, and they breathe. But if it's like a tiny drop of water, they might just walk into it and they might not have time to react and just drown that way. Yes, Brian?
Why did you pick this?
Because I'm really interested in ants, actually. I did catch an ant queen recently. Sadly, it was unfertile, not to mention it was a fire ant, which I didn't want to keep. They're really hard for beginners. But I'm really interested in starting my own ant colony. And now that it's spring, it's basically a prime time. It's ant season. Yes?
How can you tell if an ant is a boy or a girl?
Well, first of all, queen ants obviously are queens, so they're always girls. The workers, the normal workers in the colony, all of them are girls. There are no boy workers. The only males in an ant colony are the drones. Their only job is to mate with the queen during the neutral flights, which is where, during spring or so, they all fly out of their colonies and just mate. Males actually die right after they mate, and that's their only job. Yes?
How many ants do you own?
I actually don't own any ants yet. Like I said, I did catch a queen ant, but sadly I had to get rid of it. But I'm actually looking forward to owning my own ant colony this spring.
So how do you know so much about this? Or like, why do you want to?
See, well, as you see, I have one citation here, Ants Canada. They have a YouTube channel, and they also have a website, and really I learned everything from there. I watched the YouTube channel, and I thought it was really fascinating, because the person who runs the YouTube channel, they own their own ant colonies, they own a lot. And I watched it, and I thought it was really interesting how these ants, they like, for example, in the formicarium, they might make storages for food, or storages for pupa, and they have like a queen that like they all protect, and I thought that was really interesting how they live together.
I think it was during the stage,
Founding? Formicarium stage?
no, it was during the time where you had to see if your queen was, no, if it was like a cluster, I think was
Claustral.
or if it was
Semi-claustral.
You said just to go and ask someone else. Do you actually know how to tell?
Yeah, well, see, the thing about semi and claustral species is there is no way to tell if an ant is claustral, but you have to find out its species and see if that species is claustral. Something about identifying that I did mention is this website, again, this is a website and a YouTube channel. They have forums on there, which is where I identified my own ants. You can basically post pictures and you can post the size of your own queen ant and they identify it for you because a lot of them are really good on ants. Yes?
So in the beginning you said that you just have to like stick a cotton ball in it and they can like go in there.
If you're not doing, yeah.
Can they breathe through the cotton ball?
Actually, yes. That's why we use cotton balls to close the tubes. Just because that's what they breathe through and they can't get through it.
Great.
Okay, any more questions at all? No? Okay, good.